Children killed or seriously injured on the roads over the last 5 years were cyclists or pedestrians. The report found 34 children were killed and another 592 were seriously injured between 2019 and 2023. The RSA's David Martin has this advice for kids on their way to and from school.
There's increased amount of traffic on the roads. Be very, very cautious. Be very careful when crossing roads. Clearly, that's that's a very key moment in any journey to and from the school. And just keep your wits about you. And if you've any doubt about crossing a road or whatever, stop, pause, look both ways, and take your time.
A man in his 60s has been charged to appear before court in Derry later this month. The offences include carrying an imitation firearm and driving when unfit. He's due to appear before Derry Magistrates Court on the 25th of September. Donegal, Sligo and Leitrim are among the counties who are most likely to have oversized classrooms in primary school. The Irish Independent released the report today. It found that almost 15% of classrooms here contain 30 or more students, while just over 23% are in a class of 20 or less. The average classroom size is 21.8 pupils in Donegal. Meanwhile, there's a call for €5 million fund in the budget to support children in non-DEIS schools who are going through poverty. Less than a half of students experiencing disadvantage in 2021 were in DEIS schools. The government scheme only supports around a quarter of students, so the charity says additional supports are needed for all students who are disadvantaged. Julia Hearn from the Children's Right Alliance says poverty isn't limited to certain areas.
Unfortunately, poverty is in every community in Ireland. There are people who are experiencing poverty that people might not even know about. And what's really important is that there is something there for schools to look at what they can do to support these students, especially if they're not in those DEIS schools.
New legislation has been put in place to prevent stalking and protect victims. Justice Minister Helen McEntee has announced the new provisions that allow victims to apply to the District Court for a civil order. Before now, the legislation only applied when the perpetrator was a current or former partner. And a major power outage affecting Lifford has been largely resolved this morning. Over 4,000 homes and businesses were without electricity in Rossgear. That number now stands at 102, which ESB says is planned to be restored by 10:30. Where weather now, rather cloudy and wet start this morning with some patchy mist and fog clearing away. It'll feel a little bit cooler today with highs of 15 to 17 degrees with light winds. That's all for now from Highland Radio News. Back with more at 10 o'clock.
Don't miss acclaimed thriller, The Critic.
I want to blackmail him.
Which part do I play?
With Ian McKellen, Gemma Arterton and Mark Strong.
You live with yourself.
It's thrilling.
You're so naughty.
Superb, says the Daily Mail. Ian McKellen is outstanding.
Please.
The Critic, rated 15A, only in cinemas September 13th.
The county's #1 talk show, The 9 till Noon Show on Highland Radio.
And very good morning to you. This is the 9 till Noon Show on Highland Radio. It's Donal Kavanagh with you until 12 noon on the show today. Lots to go through, including, as we said, going over on a regular basis during the programme to Ards Forest Park, where Greg and the team are taking part on the Monday leg of the Donegal Camino, raising funds for Donegal Cancer Care West. And we'll be speaking to Greg and the team over the course of the programme. First contact's going to be within the next half hour or so. We want to get your views, of course, on the issues of the day or the stories that are important to you. You can text us on 086 60 25,000. You can also use that number for your WhatsApp messages as well. You can call us on 07491 25,000, 00353 7491 25,000 if you're outside of the dialing area. Caroline taking your calls and producing the show this morning as well. You can use social media. We're Highland Hub on Facebook. We're at Highland Radio on X, and we're on other social media channels as well. You can email us, of course, comments at highlandradio.com. Looking at the papers this morning, Donegal News Monday edition, a lovely story on the right-hand side of the paper. Miracle dog Mally survives 2 weeks on cliff. This is a story that broke over the weekend. Mally, a Bernese mountain dog, who had been in Donegal with its German owner, was lost on Arranmore Island and feared dead because the thought was that the dog had gone over a cliff and drowned. But a fisherman actually found the dog on the side of the cliff. It had been there for 2 weeks and was surviving on water that was in puddles on the rocks, and Mally was alive. So the Arranmore lifeboat and Coast Guard crews managed to get Mally and reunite the dog with its owners, which is a lovely story indeed. Main story on the Donegal News this morning, sadly focusing on what you've been hearing on the news as well. Urgent road safety message after a tragic week on roads. 4 deaths in separate collisions in Donegal over the past week, and there was another crash on the N56 near Inver yesterday. A motorcyclist in hospital after that one, thankfully. Non-life-threatening injuries in that case, but the road again was closed for a couple of hours there on the N56. Nice picture on the inside. Canon Crooks retires. A picture of Canon David Crooks and some diocesan colleagues. He's retired his position as the rector of Teboyne, and we'll be speaking with Canon Crooks about his retirement and about his long life in ministry in Donegal and his other interests as well, not least of which obviously is the railways. Canon Crooks has been a very vocal and active campaigner for railway services in the Northwest. The Derry News this morning, main story: woman suffers serious injury in Derry assault, an incident that happened in the Cunningham Building, Ebrington Square, Limavady Road area of the Waterside. It happened on Saturday, August 24th, which is a week ago. Woman assaulted by a number of persons at approximately 10 o'clock, and police seeking information on that one. Major story inside, obviously, on the announcement last week by Colm Eastwood, the Foyle MP, that he is stepping down as the leader of the SDLP. And as expected over the weekend, Claire Hanna confirmed that she is putting her name in the hat to take over. Colm Eastwood himself gave her his blessing when he stepped down, and the expectation is that Claire Hanna, the South Belfast North Down MP, will become the SDLP leader in October when the party holds its annual conference. Main story in The Independent this morning, it's one you've been hearing on the news, of course. Class sizes fall, but will intend still in overcrowded rooms, with the revelation that you're more likely to be in an overcrowded classroom if you're in Donegal. That story in the Irish Independent. Inside The Independent, lots of coverage, of course, of Oasis and the weekend sale of gigs for the Croke Park, the tickets for the 2 Croke Park gigs. A lot of people complaining about the fact that the, as Ticketmaster called it, dynamic ticket pricing has got to the point where people were being asked for €415 for what was termed a VIP ticket. Now, what a VIP ticket appears to be is a ticket. Look, the bottom line is, what's the capacity of a gig in Croke Park? Is it, 60,000, 70,000? We'll say, for the sake of argument, we'll say 60. I'm not even sure it's that much. But we'll say if you can get 60,000 in, you're going to have 2 nights. That's 120,000 people. So that's 120,000 people. Let's say a minimum 10,000 tickets are going to be spoken for between family and other obligations and sponsors and whatever. So we'll say you're going to have 150,000 tickets. The reality is there's 500,000 people looking for 150,000 tickets. And that's basic economics and basic figures. The main story by Melanie Finn is, don't be surprised Oasis concerts sold out at supersonic speed. It's a generation's trip back to the 90s. I would have seen Oasis twice. I would have seen them in the 90s and I would have seen them in the mid-2000s. And a very, very good band indeed. Really enjoyed the 2 gigs. Did I go in? I did go into the queue at one point on Saturday. I was actually working here, so I just, at about 10:15, I just finished the 10 o'clock news. About 10:15, I just went on to the Ticketmaster app for the crowd. Went on the phone. The phone just said, sorry, the Ticketmaster telephone app isn't working. Go online. So I went onto the PC, went into Ticketmaster. There was a queue to get onto the Ticketmaster website. And that was before you got into the queue for actual tickets. And at that point, I knew exactly what was going to happen, which was you would not get the standard tickets, but you would get either resales or you would get special VIP tickets. It happened to me. U2 did a couple of gigs in the Odyssey in Belfast a couple of years ago. And I went on just to see could I get one, because it would have been a great gig to go to. And I actually was offered 2 U2 tickets on Ticketmaster. And I think I was being asked for 320 something pounds sterling for each. Needless to say, I did not see U2 in the Odyssey in Belfast, and I didn't feel I'd missed anything by it. Irish Times this morning, you'll have been hearing on the sports news about the wonderful success of Katie George Dunleavy with Major Mount Charles connections, and Eve McChrystal, silver medalists in the Paralympic Games, and a lovely picture of the two on their bike in the Velodrome in Paris. A story on the Irish Times that's an interesting one. Doorstep passport checks on flights intensify. Efforts to crack down on people entering the country without travel documentation have increased sharply in recent months, with around 6.5% of flights arriving in Dublin now subject to doorstep passport checks. According to figures released to the Irish Times, officials from Border Management are actually carrying out passport checks at the gates. Over 4,500 arrival flights in the first 7 months of 2024. Now, you'll have seen Michael O'Leary in particular, and others as well, when asked about this thing. How do so many people manage to get into the country without documentation? And I mean, you know, and I know, if you and I attempted to board a flight without passports and boarding passes and all the paperwork, we wouldn't get next or near security, never mind next or near the gate. But somehow thousands of people, we're told, are getting into the country without documentation. And what Michael O'Leary says, and this is, I'm sure, happening to a certain extent, the extent of it I can't obviously speak to because I do not know, I'm no expert, but O'Leary reckons, and others, they say that what's happening is that people are effectively flushing passports and documents down the toilet, that they're getting off the plane, they're going into a toilet before they present at border control, and they're flushing the documentation or getting rid of it on the plane itself, or however. So what's happening is, Michael O'Leary is arguing that people are presenting documentation at the boarding gate in the departure airport and then losing that documentation. So those checks are interesting and important in the context of just trying to make sure that people are not coming in without documentation. Now, once people come in with documentation, then if they seek asylum or whatever, that's another story. But we have to, it's an important element of border control to do these doorstep checks. And I think more and more you're going to see people boarding planes or checking at the gates, not giving people the opportunity perhaps to get rid of their documents, as it's been claimed is happening. Inside the Mail, new laws to protect sex victims. New laws have come into effect that will radically change the way courts handle prosecutions for sexual offences. We did a clip about this on the news last evening, and the interesting thing was, they're saying one of the things now is, you know, very often you hear, particularly in a court case with regards to a sexual assault, there's the testimonials, and there's a number of people give character evidence and speak to the accused's good behaviour and record in the community, etc. Now that can only be done, we're told, under oath or by affidavit. It will have to be sworn. It's not just enough to go into the court and make a statement. It will have to be a sworn affidavit. And the thought is that maybe people will think more about what they're doing in those cases. Also, immigration soars as Polish top list of new Irish citizens. The highest number of new Irish citizens over the past 5 years have come from Poland, the UK, India, Romania and Nigeria, according to figures that were released at the weekend. And an interesting one on the inside of the Irish Daily Mail. Far-right party is set for first German election win since World War II. A far-right party was posed to win a state election in Germany for the first time since the Second World War. Alternative for Germany, or AFD, has become the strongest contender in Thuringia. And I apologise to any Germans listening for the pronunciation there. It's a state in the centre and east of the country. A second election exit poll for the state of Saxony in the east also suggested that AFD was level with mainstream Conservatives there. However, it's likely that AFD will be able to form a government in either state, as no other party is willing to join with them in a coalition. And €335,000 for a shed to house TD's bicycles. The Transport Minister praises the shelter, which will house 18 bikes. A new bicycle shed in Leinster House will cost the public more than €335,000. Say no more. Irish Daily Sun this morning. Looking on the inside, and we're told Stephen Donnelly wants to spend 5 more years as Health Minister. He says progress has been made, and he told the Sun in an interview, we're only about halfway through the work that needs to be done to fix the health service, and he wants to be allowed to stay in the job so he can keep going after the next election. The figures in the poll that came out on yesterday, Sunday Independent, suggest that perhaps at this point a Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael-led coalition is again the most likely form of government after the poll that takes place, presumably at this stage in November, but no votes have been cast yet, and we'll see what happens after the election. Irish Daily Mirror this morning. Flout of order. Shops selling electric scooters are advising customers how to flout safety measures which are used to curb speed, a probe has found. And finally, just taking a look at the Irish Daily Star, the main story on the front page. It's the story we started off with, actually, on the Donegal News. Safe and hound. Miracle as dog is rescued after 15 days on cliff edge. It isn't very often that Arranmore Island is on the front page of the Irish Daily Star, but it is. Inside the paper, SF support drops again. Mary-Lou approval also down. A story about that poll that we just referenced a few moments ago. And gig pricing, a fan pain supernova. Oh, there's a pun. Gig pricing is a fan pain supernova. Yeah. And that's your papers for this morning. 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. As we said, very shortly we'll be touching base with Greg and the team that are in Ards Forest Park doing the Donegal Camino. Before we do anything else, though, we will take a short break and we shall be back in just a few moments' time.
Daily newspapers are courtesy of Cosgrove, Centra and Diner, Mountaintop, Letterkenny.
The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, with monster loans available up to €60,000 for all occasions. Visit letterkennycu.ie.
That's the sound of someone sleeping soundly on a Restex mattress. Choose from the Donegal range. A Teelan, a Kinnigo, or a Mulroy mattress. It'll change the way you sleep forever. Restex beds, Mountaintop, Letterkenny. Leave the rest to us.
Anything that collects water can be a drowning danger for young children. Drowning can happen silently and in just a small amount of water. Always empty and safely store basins and other things that collect water. Done with them. Visit mychild.ie for advice on pregnancy, baby and toddler health.
An reva is a good go bhfuil scéim dar a bheanam obair agus ruchtan ina gcuirtear réimse tacaíocht tí mí chuméis ar fáil. Is féidir leis cearú le 100 ibre a chur in iarúint, len an áirítar áit na cían ibre, le trealamh speisialta tacaíochtaí cumarsáide agus iluint a chur ar fáil. Le tuile eolais oil té chuig gov.ie/obair agus ruchtan. Becheart go mbeadh deis ag gach duine a ghuilig obair. Tionscannamh do chuid rialtas na hÉireann ón Ryan Cumarcha Socialí.
Do you currently have vacancies that need urgently filled? Have you tried various ways to find new staff but didn't succeed? Let Highland Radio help you source and fill your current vacancies in the most cost-effective way. Simply sign up to our new job spot and we will tell our listeners about your vacancies both on air and online. Every Monday, Wednesday and Friday during our primetime shows, we will broadcast the latest job opportunities across the Northwest and into counties Derry and Tyrone. All job listings will be available online at highlandradio.com. For more information, contact the advertising team on 07491 253 22 or email advertising@highlandradio.com. Highland Radio, we're here for you.
Highland Radio Time Checks brought to you by EirGrid, the operator and developer of Ireland's electricity grid. EirGrid, powering up communities, powering up Ireland. The time is
19 minutes past 9 o'clock. It's the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. A lot of discussion over the weekend about smartphones and young people, and it dovetails nicely into our next feature because we're joined on line one by James Shovlin, who is a representative of parents' associations in the Donegal area. James, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Donal. How are you?
Very well indeed. James, a number of parents' associations and others have got together in Donegal town to discuss this very issue and talk about the issue of limiting the use of smartphones by children in primary schools.
Yes, that's right, Donal. I suppose the process isn't unique to ourselves in the Donegal town area. We followed on from other parts of the country. In particular, there was an initiative down in County Wicklow and Greystones that was big in the media there about a year to 2 years ago. The basic premise of it is that parents' associations could come together in a community way and that parents would agree not to buy a smartphone for their child while still at primary school age.
Now, this is not just limiting it then to not having the phone in school. You believe that they shouldn't even have the phone at all until they're 12, 13 and moving on to second level.
Yeah, well, I suppose that's correct, Donal. That's the main bit where people, I think, become a little confused, because I mean the reality is in all of the schools, as far as I know, mobile phones are prohibited anyway. The problem really is that the smartphone is such a portable device that I think there's a growing groundswell of parents who believe that children really aren't able, they're not mature enough until at least secondary level to use such a device. The problems that it can lead to are varied and many.
The problem, obviously, with something like this, as I would see it, is if you have a group of friends, if one of them has it, they all want it. And the issue with a voluntary code like this is obviously you cannot make any obligation on parents to not buy a smartphone. So if one parent buys their child a smartphone, if Jack has it, Billy wants it, Jenny wants it, Mary wants it, Peter wants it.
Yeah, I think you're hitting the nail on the head, Donal, there. The whole point, I suppose, of the voluntary code is for me, it's twofold. First of all, it should remove that burden of pressure from parents. As you say, if Jack, Mary and Billy have a phone and Sean doesn't, naturally there's going to be that little bit of pressure. But if quite a few parents, and it's not really important to get into percentages of buy-in at the moment, but let's just say if a majority of parents had agreed not to buy a smartphone, then there should be a pressure lifted in general from those parents, because the friends of those people's children will know that John is not going to have a smartphone, that his parents have signed up, and Mary is not going to have a smartphone. And so that kind of peer pressure element begins to dissipate, and I think it will do also for the children. And that's been the experience where this has been tried out in other places.
A number of schools are supporting the initiative. Just to name a few, Scoile Rua Agus Nula in Donegal Town, St Francis National School, Barnasmore, Scoileann Lanavesa in Killymard, Educate Together at Glebe, St Peter's in Mancharles, Duncanely and St Eunan's in Lahey. All of them will have parents given the opportunity to sign that code over the coming weeks.
That's correct, Donal. Yeah, we're hoping to. We started the process last year and just ran out of time, I suppose. In June, it's such a busy time, so we're back at the coalface now in September, and we're hoping in the coming weeks to give the parents in those schools the opportunity to sign up to this voluntary code. And I'd have to stress that this is not about one group of parents telling another group of parents how to raise their children. By no means. This is simply, as the name suggests, it's a voluntary code. There's no judgment, there's no pressure. It's merely a way that parents can, I suppose, feel a little bit of safety in numbers, I suppose, that they can come together and agree on something, and it should make life easier for parents, students, and indeed the schools themselves going forward.
Caller makes an interesting point. They say when one is out dining, we see most couples glued to their smartphones. Now we blame the young people. Mums and dads should be showing better example. That's just my view, says the caller, and I think that caller very probably has a point.
I wouldn't disagree with that personally, Donal. But then, I'm only speaking here on behalf of parents' associations, and we're talking about children here. So, the reality is you and I have smartphones. I'm sure you do, as I do. I wish I didn't. I wish I didn't use it as much as I do, but it's become a reality of the modern world. And that's fine, because adults can make that decision and they can navigate, they have to make those decisions themselves. I'm merely interested here in children, young children. And I think that we've allowed this genie out of the bottle for people who cannot. Surely we cannot expect them to have the maturity to navigate something that can lead into, some very dangerous places.
Yeah, and if ever there was a phenomenon that the phrase "genie in the bottle" was named for, this is it, because they're so ubiquitous at this stage. I mean, yeah, I have one in my pocket. I absolutely do. And mea culpa, I probably do use it way too much. I try not to use it 24/7. And I mean, I'm still at the point where if I left it at home, I wouldn't be too worried if I didn't have my phone with me for half a day or whatever. But no, I would still miss it. There was an interesting poll published over the weekend where the Irish Medical Organisation is proposing that smartphones should be banned for under 16s. Now, 57% of respondents agreed yes, smartphones could be banned for under 16s. Now, whatever about limiting the use of smartphones or not providing smartphones to primary school children, I think if you tried to go under 16, that would be a very, very tall order indeed.
Yeah, I think you're right, Donal. I mean, the reality is that there was a poll last year done by CyberSafe Ireland, CyberSafe Kids, which actually told us that most children aged between 8 and 12 now have a presence on social media. Which considering that the digital consent age is 16, is pretty amazing, and that in fact, over 30% of 8-year-olds have their own smartphone. So in terms of teenagers, I think that the whole area around smartphones, that there is going to be a little bit of a kickback against social media and kind of an over-reliance on screens, and I think that's going to build. But I think for us here now, we're just trying to concentrate on the very young, and if we can do that, perhaps by the time I have, for instance, a child in first class and one in third class, that by the time they reach secondary school, that maybe owning your own smartphone won't be this huge kind of goal to reach. Maybe I'm being overly hopeful, but we'll see.
James, there is support out there for you. Caller says, James is absolutely right. Community needs to come together. People power. Parents are so isolated from each other, and that's typical of a lot of the calls we're getting in. James Shovlin, representative of the Parents Associations in Donegal Town. Thank you very much indeed, James. National schools in Barnesmore, Killymard, the Glebe, Mount Charles, Dunkeneely and Lahey all taking part in this initiative. Parents will be asked to sign this voluntary declaration that they will not give a smartphone to their primary school child. We await with interest to see how this turns out, but for the moment, James, thank you.
Thanks for speaking to me, Donal.
It's been our pleasure. Thank you, James. It's the 9 till noon to 1 Highland Radio, 28 minutes past 9. Take a short break. Back after these.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com. The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, offering low-rate car loans with fast approval. Apply online at letterkennycu.ie or in office today.
TFI Local Link operates evening and weekend services throughout rural Ireland to help you stay connected 7 days a week. We know life doesn't just happen 9 to 5, so if you're commuting, shopping, visiting family or going out in the evenings or on the weekends, let TFI Local Link take you there. Visit transportforireland.ie.
New this week in Home Store and More. All painting and DIY accessories and all metal kitchen bins are all half price. But better hurry, because when all the half price painting and DIY accessories and all the half price metal kitchen bins are gone, they're gone. Also, all home office desks and chairs and all pet beds, toys and accessories are still all half price. But when all the half price home office desks and chairs and all the half price pet beds, toys and accessories are gone, they're definitely gone. Drop by your local Home Store and More. Visit us online at homestoreandmore.ie. Home Store and More. A happy home.
It's all reward, no compromise when you switch to Vodafone. Get rewarded with an iPhone 15 on us, just for making the great decision to switch to Ireland's most reliable mobile network. With unlimited 5G data, calls and texts. Simply switch to Vodafone online or in-store today. Vodafone. Together we can.
Offer ends 22nd September 2024, subject to coverage, eligibility criteria, 24-month contract and handset availability. Most reliable network, Umlaut 2024. For Umlaut certification and full terms, see vodafone.ie/terms.
Don't miss A Night at the Opry, a brand new country concert show in Angrennan Theatre, Letterkenny on the 12th of September. Join Johnny Brady, Claudia Buckley and John Hogan as they sing the biggest hit songs in country music in Angrennan Theatre, Letterkenny on the 12th of September. Tickets on sale now from Venue Box Office.
Woohoo! You're listening to Highland Radio, broadcasting to some of the 1,000 millionaires made by the National Lottery so far. Next time you play a National Lottery game, it really could be you. Woohoo! Play responsibly, play for fun. See lottery.ie for more details.
This is the 9 to Noon Show on Highland Radio. Text us 086 60 25,000. You can use that number for WhatsApp messages as well. You can call us, of course, 074 91 25,000, 00353 74 91 25,000 if you're outside of the dialing area. Now, a few of your comments. Caller says, I'm very disappointed in Ticketmaster with the sale of tickets for Oasis. Regarding the pricing, this needs to be looked higher up a lot. People outside Ireland were allowed to buy tickets. This should be kept to residents within the country. A lot of UK traffic was on the website along with Irish buyers. That is true, but I think that's the thing that works both ways, because you will find that if you go and look at some of your friends, you'll find they're going to see people like Bruce Springsteen and Oasis and Coldplay, etc. They're going to see them in Rome, they're going to see them in London, they're going to see them in Milan. So, I mean, it's two-way traffic in that regard. But yeah, absolutely. There was a lot of pressure trying to get tickets over the course of the weekend. And I suppose the bottom law of economics is what people are prepared to pay. In terms of the scanning machine,